Welcome to your mentorship session. Today we have a special guest. She is a global champion for women's economic empowerment with UN Women, Global Peace Index Ambassador with the Institute for Economics and Peace, selected as a top 100 social enablers worldwide, and a Contact MTL ambassador. She founded a nonprofit organization named ForUsGirls Foundation. She's an expert in digital marketing, a social media specialist, and a project manager. Her name is Aminka Belvitt. With no further ado, I'll let you listen to what she has to say. Well, hello Aminka, and thank you again for joining us in the Women Let's Take Our Place program. So let's go straight to the point. This program is also here to commemorate a centenary of the women's vote in Canada. Is there a Canadian woman, politician, or activist that you admire? And tell us why.
Yes, of course. Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm so honored to be part of this program. So for me, there has been a woman that really inspired me to get involved in politics. Like, I've always been involved in politics, and it's something, a passion of mine. And when I learned about her, it kind of furthered my own vision in politics and in Canada. And her name is Rosemary Ann Brown. I don't know if you know of her. She is Jamaican born, and she came to Montreal. Actually, she studied at McGill University. She studied social work, did her master's in social work as well too. And then she was one of the first Black women to run for provincial legislator for the NDP out in BC. And then she also she was the second woman in Canadian history to run for the leadership of a political party. And so what really inspired me about her is, one, that she's Jamaican. I'm Jamaican. Yes. And also too, like, she migrated to Canada, and she really she came from a very well, I would say, educational and status, like a privileged background, in the sense that her family was well educated and were doing well in Jamaica, but even still, for her to have to deal with racism that she had to deal with in the 60s and the 70s, and also to just enter in politics. And she writes a lot about, in her biography, how to manage, being a young mom and being a wife, and then also running for political office. So she really inspired me, just to know that there was a Black woman, one of the first to do this. So that was really inspiring. Yeah,
definitely. So you're also the founder and president of this nonprofit named ForUsGirls. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, so ForUsGirls is a nonprofit organization, as you mentioned, and what we really do, we provide mentorship, leadership, and skill-based programs to marginalized girls within Montreal, Canada, and now the United States. And the mission of ForUsGirls is to really empower girls to bring them full selves in all areas of life, but to strive for leadership opportunities. I find at the time that there was a lot of organizations that did not address girls in a feminist way, and they did not train them to be leaders. And if they did, it didn't include girls of color, girls from low-income backgrounds, girls from the GLGBTQ community. So I wanted to really create a space where girls were experiencing marginalized barriers to have access to spaces in life, were able to get the same type of leadership opportunities if they didn't have those barriers upon them.
Definitely. And when did you get the idea to create that?
Yeah, so actually it's been so long now. I think I started working on it in 2014. And it's interesting, that's where my relationship started with Girls Action Foundation. So Girls Action Foundation, they have a network, as you know, of different girls groups across Canada, and they provide you resources if you want to start a girls club. And so at the time, I was studying at Concordia, my professor was the founder of COCO, it's like the Community Organization Resource Center. And so I was working within the Black community in Montreal. I was working at the Jamaica Association, and we were doing a lot of work with other organizations such as Maison de Haiti, and also to Cotonou Black Community Associations for the different programs that we had. And a lot of these programs were women that were young mothers, were unplanned pregnancies, or were in an abusive relationship. There was no preventative programs. And ever since I've been young, I guess my perspective in life, and I've always been interested in policy and how policy can create prevention and create a better environment and solution-based. So I was asking questions, well, what are we doing to provide these girls with the self-esteem, the confidence that they needed, and also to the the support to have different sexual options for like contraceptives, and they weren't there. And so I saw a lot of disconnect, and I saw a lot of gaps in what I was working with, and I did a lot of research from my professor at the time. She told me there was this research bank, so I went and I Googled what girls' club were there. There weren't any, and I came across Girls Action Foundation, and I reached out to the executive director, and I told her my idea, and she basically said, you can join our network, and you know, we do different workshops and things like that. So from there, it was just more of a conversation, and then I contacted the Black Community Association. It took about, honestly, 6 to 7 months, so we finally met. And then, and then I launched ForUsGirls in the spring of 2015. So it was about a year process in just the thought, the thinking, and you know what, let me do something.
Exactly, and it's actually created, right? So who work at ForUsGirls? Do you have volunteers and all that? Like, who is part of the team?
Yes, of course. So the team has really changed since I started. So when I started, it was just me. Like I found it myself. I didn't have a team. I had 2 friends that would help me out. We would do our first program, brunch with us on Sundays. So they would rotate with each other and help out 2 or 3 Sundays over the course of the summer. So they were the 2 ones that helped me. And then we moved into the school. We were a school program within the same year in September. So then one of those girls and 2 others would help, but mainly it was me facilitating the program while working full time. And then a year later, I was able to form a team of facilitators. I was about a group of 6 volunteer girls from Concordia. So they helped facilitate our Girls Club at Berlin Academy for 2 years. And then when we added programs such as our C for Coding program, it was just through relationships, like meeting girls at tech networking event, because I was also working in the tech industry. So they helped out. And so it's really like through different programs, people helped. Everyone was volunteers. We never had a staff person. I'm not a staff. I've continued to work full time. You know, we're working towards that type of position. So right now, as of late last year, we finally formed a board of directors. So it's myself, we have a chairwoman, and we have 2 other board of directors that are part of ForUsGirls. And we have a community development worker. We have volunteers for each program, and we have an instructor for the C for Coding program. So that's kind of like ForUsGirls in general. And then we also have a team in Jamaica of 3 teachers.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we also have a group of individuals that help us in New York with our tech summit. And then I have like personal business partners and mentors. So it's like a collective of individuals.
Basically.
Yeah.
And I also love the fact that most of your team is like based on volunteers work, you know, and it's just so amazing to see like all the initiative and all the project that you built, you know. So I was wondering, what is the key to developing a good volunteer team?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm going to be honest. It's a very difficult process. First, I think as the lead, the reason why we're able to do so much is because I put a lot in myself. Like doing ForUsGirls is literally 3 full-time jobs, because as I'm the president, I'm also working on corporate sponsorship. I'm also working on regional programs. I'm also training my team. So number one, to build a volunteer team, and I think why I've been so grateful in having those, like you said, that believed in me and joined the vision and have helped out on a volunteer basis, is because they saw what I put in. And I think if you're leading a team, you can't lead a team if they look at who's leading them and they don't put in the work. And I've always say to my team, I'm never going to ask you to do something that I am not currently doing myself or I have not done. And like I said, even when I had a team of facilitators, I still went to the school and I still facilitated myself. And when I was traveling for work, then I would have them fill in. And I think that when volunteers are able to look at the lead and to see like you're working alongside them and you're given as much effort, they're able to pour more into it. And I think also too, you have to give people meaningful roles. So for us, like our team, yes, we were volunteer based as we weren't paid, but these individuals were trained facilitators. They were creating, they were animating our programs, and they were empowering our girls. And also too, when you go to the C for Coding program, there was professionals that they would create their own content. Like at ForUsGirls, we use our own content for whatever program that we do. So it's important that one, the lead need is really put in that effort and the work ethic and the energy and the dedication they want their team to do, so you can show it to your team. And two, that you give them a meaningful role so that they can fully contribute and kind of add something to their life, and to say, hey, I did this at ForUsGirls, now I can do it in other organizations or at other jobs. And I would say finally is the vision. You have to have a vision where people believe in that vision.
Yes, a clear vision.
Yeah, and that they can carry that on, because I think what worked was that I was working with a lot of young women that really were passionate about feminism, gender equality, social justice. So this was a way for them to attach on to their interests.
Definitely. It's also a good thing to understand that it's something that is bigger than your own self, you know. The first time that you want, like if you want people to get along with your vision, to work in your project, you have to understand that it's like bigger than yourself, like you created also for the community, right? Well, you probably do a lot of outreach in your work, as you already say, with potential partners and all of that. I was wondering, how do you prefer to communicate with them? Like, do you have like a specific guideline of steps that you follow, or like do you communicate with them via email, phone, or in person, and why?
Okay, why?
Also.
That's a very good question. So I'm thinking of the many years that we've been doing this. So I would say the relationships that have worked best for us and that are been the most fruitful would be ones that were developed through relationship, through something else.
Yeah.
Relationships where I've met them. For instance, the principal that invited us to Berlin Academy, the first school we worked at, I had met him because I was organizing something else. And so we just met and I was talking about what I was doing, and he really liked what I was presenting and our values and also to our approach to the work that we do. And he invited us at his school, and then it was an evening, and then in evening he invited us at the school, and we developed the work relationship there and to discuss. So there's times when I've reached out to different organizations and I've emailed and there've been no response. And so one thing that I can say to the program participants, especially in this digital age, when you're doing community work, you also have to recognize that within the space, there's a lot of organizations, if they've been existent for many years being like over 5 or 10, or depending if they're cultural based, they're not always the best digital. So emailing someone expecting a response doesn't always work. So I would say, one, try to really identify with partners you want to work with and why, and what benefit, not only what they can bring to you, what you bring to them, so that there's a match. Because definitely along this way, I find, and now like ForUsGirls, we're in a position where we are deciding like who we want to work with. We don't need to work with a set organization that is not going to add to our vision and add to the work that we do, because we create so much magic by staying in the vision that we have and those who partner with us. So for me, I found finding a way to connect with them in person, like see if the organization has an event that you can go to and you can kind of introduce yourself in an event, and then you can follow up by email and to say, hey, I'm so-and-so from this organization. We met at like your cocktail event, or we met at your open house, and I really want just like a couple minutes of your time to discuss what I'm doing. So when it comes down to discussing information, I prefer email, just because it's written, and lots of times, no fault of their own, but partners can forget. They have a lot going on. They usually working to the max with limited resources. So if you have a conversation, they most likely forget. So I would say try to go in person first, follow up by email, and then have phone conversations. When you can't meet somebody in person, have a phone conversation. So for me, what I prefer, now I don't necessarily prefer to meet often, because you have to maximize everyone's time, but jump on the call a couple times. But yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for that. That was very useful. So there's many situations in which you will see yourself struggling in wanting to organize an event or organize a project and that. So I was wondering, have you ever worked with someone you struggle to communicate with? Because that could be an example of a situation in which you could be stuck while organizing an event or else, you know? And it's something that could either frustrate you or block you, you know? And if so, what was the obstacle and how did you overcome it?
Yes, communicating working with people, whether it's your team, potential partners or volunteers, it's a huge challenge. Definitely when you're doing work, again, that's volunteer-based and doesn't have a financial compensation to it, it is very difficult. What I find is if it's a miscommunication or lack of communication via email or whatever it is, or text, pick up the phone and I think like just really call. And I think sometimes we're so wanting to structure or schedule a call, so you're giving people an opportunity to ignore you. And for me, I would say just pick up the phone and call and just say, hey, like, let's talk. And kind of like remove the barriers of what you're actually focused on. So say, for instance, this individual is to go pick up flowers for your event and they haven't done it and like you're past your deadline. Don't make the conversation about flowers. Like, take a step back, and I think this is where, you know, EQ comes in, emotional intelligence, and empathy is really important, and something that I've been growing in and developing in this area more as my organization grows, is really finding out what's going on with them and to check in with your team and to say, perhaps one, you haven't communicated what you want from them, so they don't understand. Two, maybe they don't understand what you're expecting of them. And three, maybe they're just not in the right space to do so. And so something that I've learned also too is we need to, as leaders and those who are organizers, we need to put individuals in a position that they can succeed in. And I think sometimes when you're working with a team and you're building, you don't have a lack of resources, and I've done this, you kind of just take in everyone and anybody. Yeah. And taking anyone and everybody doesn't necessarily push your vision forward. So I would advocate that, one, quickly have a conversation if you can. If you can't have a phone conversation, ask to meet with them and kind of relieve the stress and kind of get back to just connecting as humans and define what works best for them and what mean of communication is for them. Because some people like different types of communication. And now we have so many different channels. We have Instagram, Facebook, Slack, WhatsApp, email, and some people like that. So you got to find, one, you got to find the right main of communication for them. Two, find clarity in that. Three, have understanding what they're going through. And then four, just being able to connect to them on a human level. And then you might have to decide whether or not you can continue working with them. And I've definitely done that, where I had to just say, you know, thank you for your time. I've loved what you contribute, but we're just going to move in a different direction. Yeah. And I think that we need to get more comfortable, especially as women, doing that, because sometimes we feel we have to, we think that we get such limited help that we have to take anything. And again, I've been there, but in terms of growth and scaling, you need to be able to say, okay, perhaps you can't help me with this task, but let's find out what you're better else at doing, and let's focus on that.
Definitely, definitely. So now let's describe a time you had to share bad news with your team regarding the future of an initiative that you were planning to launch, or and how did you deliver the news, and how did you overcome your possible stress and fear, just like you said, like saying to someone, it's not working right now, let's try to find like another area of expertise that you have that we can develop. But having this kind of conversation is not an easy thing to do, right?
That's true, it's not. And I think those conversations, they need to be done face to face. So like, if you can do a phone, try to. Now we're in the age of like video call and FaceTime. Definitely do a FaceTime. I've had that, like for instance, last year when I was organizing one of our summits in New York City, we had someone working with us. It was an intern, but she was based in Ottawa, and we were just working on the project, and I felt that I can sense that it wasn't necessarily working out for her, and we had to have communication and to discuss this. And so what we've done is that, again, allowing the time to pass. And I think sometimes we're so in the moment, we feel that it's urgency, and I'm definitely the type of person, but you have to be able to just take a step back from it and to assess. And I think that as a team leader and somebody who's organizing the activity or the initiative, you have to gather your decision, and you have to gather the next move before you communicate that with your team. Because the worst thing that someone else who's following your lead is to have further confusion. And so I've always said there's nothing wrong with bad news or something going bad, is how you handle it and how you deliver it. And so what I found is in that situation was just like, okay, take a break, and we will reconvene in a week or two. And so then we've had that phase conversation, and we were able to say, this is where we have kind of had some missteps or some gaps, and this is perhaps not working out. And you ask the person, is this and most likely it's not working out for that person as well too. And it goes back to what I was saying as well, is being able to just say, okay, we're just going to find a resolution to kind of work on transitioning out of this situation. And where it's bad news, where something is going on, and we've had this, like we have partnerships with multiple schools, and where there has been delays and setbacks in starting a program while we have interns that have an academic requirement to complete, and you're in the middle of not having information. So the way that I've handled it, and the way to handle it is, again, gather the information that you can, and also to manage your stress. And I think I've got better at that, is that understanding what you can change and what you can't change.
Yeah.
And really just taking a break. And I think that I realize is that we create stress in ourselves. Like, you can choose to get mad, you can choose to get angry. At the end of the day, you have no idea what's going on another side. It could be that you're right, it could be that you're wrong. But focusing on someone else's action is not going to find any solution. It's not going to make you better. So that's number one, is to be able to just hold your stress and to pause. And then the next thing is to gather the information and just be honest with them, and just first acknowledge their patience, acknowledge their cooperation, and to say, this is the situation. I'm working on making it better. I'm going to communicate you when I have another update, and this is where I had for now. And then allow them to give you their grievances. And that's the only way you can really handle it.
Yeah, and that's an amazing way to handle it, because it also gives the person a chance to explain like her point of view or his point of view, you know. After giving several speeches, let's take, for example, the one that you gave at We Day Montreal last year, right? What would you say that is like the key to success when communicating with the public and in public too?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Yes, We Day was awesome. It was a really great experience. I think that was an easy one, in the sense that there was so much energy in that room, and those youth, they just got you excited. And I think at one point, there was a couple points in my speech where I had to pause and I tripped up, because they were just screaming and they were just reacting so much. And I think what that got me too, because in that and their excitement is that you have to go with the flow, and you can prepare so much, and the teleprompter is going and the words are coming, but I think you have to feel the moment, and the feeling the moment is allowing people to respond to what the energy that you're given, and to accept that energy. And I think that's the best way of communicating it. In the public speeches I've done, and whether it's at the UN or We Day, it's just really about pausing the moment and to see what energy you're getting off of, and to vibe with that energy. That's the best way to do any public speak in whichever platform it is.
And how do you prepare a speech most of the time?
Yes, how do I prepare a speech? So I always look about the theme, the topic. So I go with that. I look at different inspirations. What can I add to it? And then I draw in my own experience. And I always go with, what do I want to take from this? What do I want people to experience? What experience do I want people to get from this? It's not about me. It's about when somebody leaves, what can they say that Aminka said to them that they haven't heard before? Because if I'm given something that's the same, then perhaps I don't need to be on that platform. So that's really how I prepare the speech. And then, like, in terms of a meticulous way, I always, before I write anything down, I record myself. So I do voice notes. So I just I did a keynote in June for the Businesswomen's Association in Toronto. And before I wrote anything down, and this was a big speech because it was about the future of technology and girls and women's place in that. And so before I did my analytical research, I just had a conversation with myself, and I just recorded myself, and I put all my thoughts down, and I put all my thoughts of what I was thinking about the topic and what I experienced and what other people can experience. And then I listened back to it, and then I started taking my notes, and then I built and formatted my speech from there.
Interesting. Really interesting. And how do you handle stress before giving a speech? Do you have like a specific tips or tricks that you could give?
Yeah, so mine might be really goofy. I like, before any speech or any big moment that I have in life, I like to dance in my kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems very simple, but how people can take that from there is to really just release energy, right? And I think people can release energy by yoga, and I think I have such a tense physical structure in general that I tend to be tense in my body, and I think just dancing in my kitchen or doing something, I like to release, and doing something that doesn't require my mind and is just reacting to my body, it then allows me to just clear my mind, my energy, and to give that moment everything that I have.
I like that. I might try it probably, because like, personally, most of the time that I do a speech or anything, I like to, you know, focus and, you know, but probably dancing could help too.
Yeah, it kind of gets your energy up and releases it, and
definitely.
Yeah, sometimes too much solitude is too much solitude.
Definitely. Well, we are at the end of our interview. I just have one last question for you. If there were 3 things that you would like the participants to keep in mind as they carry out their projects, what would these 3 things be?
That's a really good question. So those 3 things that I would want the participants to do when they carry their project, when you are carrying out your project, is what is the end goal, right? Like, you have to vision not what you're creating for today, for tomorrow, vision what you're creating in the end. And I think, and work towards that. Too many times when individuals are creating something, it's like, I want to create the next stop. Like, I want to go from point A to point B. And when you're creating the next stop and you're just looking at the next stop, you're missing so much of what you can add, what you can experience, what you can extrapolate on. So number 1 is to look at the end. What are you trying to achieve at the end? Is it this program that you're trying to deliver? What does this program look like at the end? And work towards that goal and to deliver that, because that's going to carry you all the way through. And 2, and I said this throughout the interview, you have to give people something. And I think right now we're so in the age of individuals just wanting to be out there, and we're so bombarded with so much content and people's personas and information, but what separates the noise is what you can take from them. And at ForUsGirls, why we're so leadership and mentorship and skill based is that we want you to take something. We're not just here to make you feel good. We will help you through that, but we want that at the end, like, our girls can come back to us and say, hey, because of this program, I now have the skills to start our business. I've now gone to this summit, and because I knew how to apply to go to summits throughout the world. That you have to give somebody something, so that's the impact, right? It's not just you just create a program, it's that how many lives were changed in the program, how many new skills were gained in the program, how many new thoughts of thinking was changed. So you have to give people something in the end, and to kind of know why you did it and what you were trying to create. And 3, and kind of ties them all back together, it has to be a solution. Like, if you're not solution based, if you're not building something that could solve a problem, if you're just adding to the problem, you're not working towards the end goal. So if you see the picture, if you see from 5 years from now, or 2020 or 2030, this is what I want the world to look like. So because this is what I want the world to look like, this is what I'm creating, the experience to achieve this. And in doing so, this is what I want individuals to get from what I'm creating. And from there, that's where you have the true impact. That's where you have the legacy. That's where you change society and you have that transformative life change moment.
You have to have a vision, basically. Well, thank you so much for all of that, for all of the information. It was a true pleasure to interview you, and I'm sure the participants will learn a lot from it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be able to be part of this, and I wish you guys all the best and great success in your projects to come.